All right, we're talking about mobile app design and some tips, tricks, examples, the whole nine yards. So, how do we do this well? There's so little space to use, right? You got 3 to 5 inches, but you got to be smart. That's the key. The smartness that comes with app design, they got to be married. If you don't, you'll end up with a cluttered, overwhelming, non-interesting app. And your job is to create something that's visually stunning but usable. We talked about some of these things in the UX lecture. If you haven't watched that, I'd check it out. You really need to have a goal. You got to know what your designs will need to achieve and for who. You have a persona, you have a target market, you have research on that target market. You know the people you're going to interact with. And so you have to design efficiently now that you know them. And this is why research is so important. Over and over and over again, we harp on research in this major. So this is something that's going to haunt you in every darn class. So be aware that this is coming. So understand that goal-driven design is founded with research. So okay, let's look at this one. The entire goal of this app that I'm showing you right here is literally to shake it, and it helps you decide what to do, and has funny little quippy things that it says. It has like, but that's the whole point, right? It knows what it's marketing towards somebody who wants smart, funny little quips. It's not trying to do too much. It's goal-driven. So what else? It needs to be usable. Usability is just another word for desirability. If your app design isn't desirable, people just won't use it. It's just a common thing. Like if it doesn't ignite some of the things I talked about in the UX lecture, like delight, clarity, people just get overwhelmed. They won't even finish your login process if it's not good. Your app interface needs to be accessible and usable for everybody from beginning users to other users who are well ingrained in the tech world. It needs to be creative too. The thing is that your personas range all over the board. So you have to really think, what does that user need? Are they a child? Do they need to be protected? Are they an aging adult? Do they need larger type? You need to think through those type of things. Familiarity with function. So for instance, a blue underlined text or phrase always means a hyperlink. These indicators, we talked about them in the UX lecture, they exist already. If you swipe up, you expect a menu to come there. If you have an edit bar, like a pencil, you expect you're able to edit. These indicators are familiar to users. They identify common functions. So the thing is that are you using them? Are you thinking, how will somebody modify the settings? It better look like a gear, right? How will somebody know it's their user? It better look like a person. How will someone get home? Better look like a house. We need to think through the familiarity of function. For instance, on this little app, you'll see this little date is circled. You know that's because that's the day it's selected. That's obvious. The plus sign is to add something new. This is something that is ingrained already with app functionality. Let's use it to your advantage. All right, so here's some things, some tip things. Format your content. So you got to create a layout that fits the screen, and we're using iOS this time, so not Android. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One of the reasons is that you really dive into Android design in 354. So if you're looking for that and you're like, but I use Android. Well, if you're going to design apps, you're going to design them for both. So for this case, just to make it simple, we're going to use iOS. iOS, typically, you never ever scroll horizontally. You can scroll up, down, but never horizontally. It's laborious, it's awkward, you miss content, it's not something you want to do. So the one on the right is no good. The one on the left makes sense. It's formatted to fit the screen. Another thing that this is something that you will use in this project is progressive disclosure. You're literally leading your audience step by step through an app. And the reason why we do it the way we do it that way is so it doesn't clutter. Progressive disclosure allows people not to be feeling overwhelmed by huge amounts of step on every page. So like, look at this, the first step. Are you a beginner? Not a beginner? Great. Okay, that's your first step. Then you take a test to jump ahead. And you can quit at any time. It's showing this progress bar to like translate the sentence. It's like the whole point is that if an app showed everything all on one page, it'd be overwhelming. It takes forever. People get annoyed. People can only handle so much. It's so interesting. We think people can handle more than they actually can. And when you're going through an app, you really need to think about yourself even. When you're going through an app, if a login process takes too long, if they want too much information, you're going to bail. They know this. This is why they show that little progress bar of how far you have to go to finish something. With progressive disclosure, you don't need to have everything on one single page. You will feel tempted to put way too much junk on a single screen. Remember how small that screen is. Remember how short your attention span is. You must allow people to gain the information, to complete the information, to do the things you want them to do step by step. Using things like this little icon and this little menu and the cancel and the start, all of these things allow people to feel like they're in control, like it's not overwhelming, and they can complete this screen. And that's what you need them to think. As you're designing things, you need to think through touch controls. The reason why we use scrollers like this to select a date and a time is because our touch, innately, our screens are used for touch. So you will absolutely be using your fingertip. How easy is it to use the one on the right and hit the wrong date? It's very, very easy because those squares are so small. But the other ones, the other scroll control, you're used to flicking and scrolling, and it allows you to use this in a more functional way. You have to think through, is this too small of a button? Am I going to accidentally hit cancel after I just filled in a whole form? Have you ever done that before? It is the most frustrating thing. You always have to think, how big are my buttons? Are they consistent? That's something that I'll show you again and again, but your menu, your navigation, your buttons must be consistent throughout all of your screens. If they're not, it causes confusion. It makes people think this one must not be as important as that one. That's what size does. Remember, we talked about hierarchy before. If something is bigger, it looks more important. Your text, your body text, should be at least 13-point type to be legible. Now, here's the thing. If you have an older audience, shoot for a larger type. It's already hard enough for them to read. You know they have vision problems. They know they have vision problems. Vision goes with age. That's common. That's not even ageism. That's just what it is. So we need to shoot for the size that's going to be helpful. Now, if you want to fit tons and tons of text on a page, you might be inclined to use something smaller, but just don't do that. Type on an app needs to be readable. People are used to scrolling. So if it's a news story or something, they will continue to scroll. But if you have too much type on a page, it gets laborious and people give up. Make sure there's ample contrast between the font color and the background. We never want to use colored type like the thing on the right. It gets so visually overwhelming. My head hurts just looking at it. A nice contrasted body copy is the key to helping people read what you have. Absolutely make sure there's contrast. Don't let your text overlap. We really need to focus on leading. Leading is super duper important, and you'll see on the left that the leading is nice, has a nice space, but on the right it is way too cramped. It's an easy thing to see when you're looking at somebody else's, but you accidentally sometimes make leading too tight without even knowing it. This is where viewer coming in and having somebody view it, having somebody use it, is going to help them say, this seems a little cramped, and you're like, shoot, my leading's too tight. Make sure your leading has a nice breathable space between lines. As you're building this, you can use images. Hooray! Make sure you do not stretch your images. This one on the right is stretched. It does not keep the aspect ratio, right? So like the hands look wider, the little, I don't know what those are, those little cherries are like, I think that's actually coffee. coffee beans, which are in cherries, by the way. But anyways, I think those cherries are stretched. It's like, it's because somebody didn't place the picture correctly. So those are just little things. Okay, so as you create your app, you're just going to create, for this project, you're only going to create 4 screens to show 4 different functions of your app. These are some that exist in the App Store already. And really what you're going to build is you're going to build a logo, you're going to build screens for your app, and you're going to build what they do. So here's another one that kind of shows some of that. And really, these screens show, you know, hundreds of guided workouts, coaches. You're going to show these little pieces of your app so people can understand what it's for. You're going to put your little logo in there, and talk about how you use it. And it's deceptively simple, because when we start this, we will start sketching, and we always start on paper. The reason why we start on paper is because paper is not as precious as digital prototypes. If you do a paper prototype and somebody says, I don't really get it, you're willing to scratch some of it out, you're willing to redo it, erase it, move a button. But if it's on the screen, you're like, I spent so much time on that, I don't want to really do it over again. As you start on paper, you'll be able to understand what your app actually does. You'll start sketching screens, you'll start sketching navigation, usability. You'll think about, what does it have to do? What are my users' needs? What does my home page look like? And you'll really hone in on that main functionality. I want to show you some apps that have been done before, and they are beautiful. Okay, so I love these apps, and this one actually was done for a different course, but I love the way this is just the sign up. Now you will be doing 4 different screens with 4 different functionalities. This is an onboarding, but you can see she uses progressive disclosure. She has a back button, so if you need to go backwards, it's really easy to do that. She ends with her navigation after you sign in. She has consistent size buttons, great use of type, beautiful icons to draw you through, same feel and vibe all the way through, a nice confirmation to say, yeah, you've done it, congrats. She does a really good job. This one was done for 254. It's going to load here. It's a little bit pixelated because it's a really big file. And once it loads, I'll show you a little bit more about it. But the thing, oh, there it goes. Okay, so the things that work, here's the nice logo. Very, very clean, well done, easy to read. And this is the thing that she turned in, I want you to know. So like super fantastic, right? So consistent menu at the bottom of every page. Consistent font usage. She had a font that she decided, this is what I'm going to roll with, and she used it again and again. She has 4 different functionalities, including the profile, stats, understanding media usage stats versus daily and weekly usage stats, and then the leaderboard. But all of her fonts are consistent. All of her navigation bars are consistent. You know where you are based on what the navigation bar is saying. She used color really well. Now this is a lot of color, but she used the icons, right? So typically I say don't use so many colors, but she was using the icons for this project, so that's why she used it. But you can see that this app is clean, it's consistent, it's not too much on a page, it's well done. As you ponder your app, start on paper and start sketching the feel that you want to really have emulated. I'm really excited to see what you guys come up with.